What advice do you have for today's diplomats?
First, you have to be able to see the other side of issues. If you can't put yourself in the shoes of the other side without being captured by their viewpoint, but to understand why they are looking at the issue the way they look at it, then your effectiveness is going to be eroded. Secondly, you have to constantly reflect on how your own country's behavior is influencing the behavior of others. This is where our intelligence community is weakest. And the reason is because if they explain bad behavior by another country as that country's reaction to a bad policy by our country, then our political leaders all get mad and blame the intelligence community. So the intelligence community is not good in identifying where foreign behavior is a product or a reaction to U.S. behavior. And for diplomats, you have to be able to make that distinction. Because in many cases, the foreign country is reacting to what you're doing and not simply doing something wicked on its own. Sometimes they do something wicked, so you have to also recognize that. But if we're doing something which is adversely affecting their interest, they will then do something in response. And if we then blame that on the fact that they're wicked, then we're not understanding the problem. And we see that at work in our relationship with China over Taiwan at the moment, where China is doing some things that we don't like, but they are responding to things that we're doing that China doesn't like. And the question is, how do you get that dynamic under control? And being able to control that dynamic is vitally important if we're not going to get our relationship pushed in the wrong direction. So, the last point I would make is we have to recognize that the world is changing and it's becoming multipolar again. We have been the sole superpower in a unipolar world for, 2 decades, 3 decades. And we have discovered that, in fact, there is no such thing as a sole superpower. Because during that period of dominance, which is highly unusual in the world, we weren't able to use our military power effectively in order to accomplish our purposes. And I don't think the world is subject to being dominated by a sole superpower. I don't think that China aspires to be a sole superpower. What China aspires to is to be one of the leading countries of the world, and therefore a country that has a right to claim a place at the table when major decisions are made on international issues that affect China's interests. And that hasn't always been the case. But many Americans don't think that. But I think that if they don't recognize that dynamic, then we'll have a distorted view of how to deal with the world.